Electrocast.
Why wait to see if you'll get something you like this Valentine's Day when you can go to BlueNile.com and find something you'll love? Whether you're looking to treat yourself to a little winter sparkle or show a galentine how much you appreciate them, Blue Nile offers a wide selection of high-quality designs, expert guidance, and free 30-day returns for the ultimate peace of mind. You can even design your own jewelry. Right now, save up to 50% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
On this episode of Missing the Point, we'll take a look at the New England Patriots as their streak of 11 consecutive AFC East titles has come to an end. And with the path to the playoff officially closed, we'll start to look forward to see how the Patriots can get back to the top of the mountain in 2021. We'll also discuss all the biggest storylines coming out of the NFL in Week 13. We'll also travel back in time to 1995, the last time the Buffalo Bills won the AFC East. But first, some housekeeping. Missing the Point is a 1-hour weekly podcast recapping the biggest stories in the world of sports with a New England flavor. The show notes and transcript from today's episode can be found in the description box below, as well as on our website, www.mtpshow.com. If you're new to the show, please consider subscribing. It's the easiest way to see we publish new episodes. We are on iTunes, Spotify, Google, and wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to rate us and leave a review of any of our shows. We always appreciate your feedback. Also be sure to follow us on all of our social medias. All of our links will be in the show notes. And check out our brand new website, www.mtpshow.com. That's mtpshow.com. And now, this is Missing the Point, episode 23. But it's all relative.
Welcome, everybody, into Missing the Point. I'm Joe Malkin, joined tonight by Dave Clarke and Mike Marcangelo. And, of course, the greatest EP we could ever find. Well, he found us. Craig D'Alessandro. Guys, how we doing tonight?
Awesome.
Yep, good, man. I'm just ready to get into it.
Ready to get into it? Good, because we have a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to start with the AFC East. A big part of the weekend in the NFL was the AFC East, and the fact that the New England Patriots have officially been disqualified, if you will. They've been knocked out of the race for the AFC East title. It'll be the first time in 12 years. They won the last 11 straight. It'll be the first time in the last 12 years that the New England Patriots cannot win the AFC East title. And that was after a very disappointing 24-3 loss to the Los Angeles Rams last Thursday night to kick off Week 14 after coming off a 45-0 win also in LA against the Chargers. So my first question to Mike, what happened to the Patriots in LA after winning in LA?
Yeah, I think what happened was, the Chargers were a team that the Patriots match up against well. Just if for no other reason, it's because Bill Belichick just lives rent free in every head of rookie quarterbacks. He just does. He always does so well against them. That was a great game, not by Cam, but by the team. It was a really good game, and then they just got their asses kicked by the Rams. I would say like the Rams are a top tier NFL team. They're like probably like the lower half of that tier. And they ran all over us. They threw all over us. And it was embarrassing that Cam Newton throws a pick six on a screenplay. When's the last time you saw that happen? So I think what happened, Cam Newton can never be down by more than 7 points and win a game in this offense. Maybe it's not his fault. Maybe it is. I haven't really wrapped my head around that. All I know is that I think Belichick was lulled into a false sense of security after the win against the Chargers, and then he got his absolute ass whooped in the Rams game.
We've seen it already a couple times this year with the Chargers, where Anthony Lynn, the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, makes some questionable coaching decisions. He did it again this weekend, but he ended up winning. But he did it again this weekend, and he did it against the Patriots on multiple occasions, and they have a rookie quarterback. So you're absolutely right, Mike. The matchup was better against the Chargers, and then the Los Angeles Rams, who they've seen before. It's basically the same team they played in the Super Bowl a few years ago. Same quarterback, a lot of the same defensive players. They really bolster. I mean, that defense is probably underrated. I think it's definitely one of the best defenses in the NFL. But Dave, from your standpoint, our New England Patriots spent 2 weeks out in Los Angeles, which is your neck of the woods, and you got a smirk on your face already. So I don't know where you're going to go with this, but what do you have to say about the New England Patriots, and what have you heard out in LA?
Oh, guys, I'm sorry. This is such a bummer to watch you just roll around like this in pain. I was put out of my misery weeks ago on this season.
You put yourself out of your own misery when the Bears were 5-1. And this is going to be the season over.
I knew I could say I watched them every week. They're my team. I could see how thin they were, and I was right. So here we are. I just want to talk you guys through like your processing here, because to answer your question, Mike, the last time I saw a team throw a pick six on a screen pass was Cam Newton threw a pass to Julian Edelman, and he scooped it like a baby and threw it to the and that was this season. It was only a few weeks ago. You might have blocked it out, which is fine.
No, that was the Chiefs game, and Cam wasn't playing.
Oh, who threw that pass then?
Brian Hoyer, but also just a disclaimer.
Oh, so they've designed the play for all quarterbacks. That's good.
Oh yeah. Everyone gets it.
Hey, quick PSA: don't throw babies.
Yeah, no, don't. I always did think of that expression, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, who did that they had to come up with that? Anyway, so that's to answer that question. It's funny how the Rams beating the Patriots has now become a discussion in the New England fan base of, well, the Rams aren't that bad. This is now what I'm hearing.
Well, they weren't to begin with.
I know, but like, I did listen last week, and my heart went out to you guys as I heard you all just amp yourselves up for the Patriots comeback season. Bill Belichick's a genius again. He's gonna go out there, and he's on the road, and he's gonna get this huge victory. It's gonna swing the momentum back our way. And I had a sneaking suspicion. I wasn't on the show, so I can just say that I predicted this. I had a sneaking suspicion that the Rams were going to beat up on you guys, mainly because you can't move the ball, and like it's a very un-Patriots like quality to have, and I'm sure it's like taking a lot of getting used to watching it. But watching the Bears this year and watching the Patriots on offense is a very similar experience. It's incredibly frustrating.
Your quarterback is better though, no matter which one they put.
Yeah, whichever one it is. I mean, the difference between the Bears and the Patriots is like they have the personnel on the Bears to move the ball. They just don't have.
Yeah, they're like the opposite of one another. It's like we have the people, but not the coaching and the decision making. You guys have the coaching and the decision making, but not the personnel. I totally agree with you.
So if the Bears had Belichick as their head coach, they would have 2 losses.
I would kill each of you individually in order to have Bill Belichick as my coach. I just want that on the record.
So that's going to be one of our conversations that comes up in our live show this coming Sunday is coaches in the NFL. We've already mentioned Anthony Lynn. And Dave, it's so interesting you bring that up because you brought that up in our Slack channel on Thursday night. Like you guys really talked yourselves into that, into a win against the Rams. And that was myself, Rayshawn, and Bob Kelly that were on the show last weekend. So episode 21 down in the show notes.
Yeah, I heard you guys talk yourselves into Jarrett Stidham at the start of the season, and I knew you were talking yourself into that too before they went and got Cam Newton. Although I'm not sure how much better it would have been or worse it would have been, but I think that this is a growing pain of a season. It's very difficult for you guys to process having a bad football team, which is totally understandable because it's been a long time since you've had a bad football team.
But it's never been this bad. I mean, they look anemic. Oh well, it has been. What I'm saying, like when I say it's never been this bad under Bill Belichick, I mean that first year 5-11, sure.
It could be as simple as a lot of Bill's tricks. Like you always have to speculate about Bill Belichick's the thing because you're never going to get anything from it. It's like trying to get blood from a stone, trying to get information on how he does his job. But it could be as simple as a lot of the stuff that Bill figures out, he figures out in the preseason. And we had a truncated, non-existent preseason and a sort of a truncated intro into the season. Maybe that's where he spends a lot of the time getting his guys ready. Maybe that's where he spends a lot of it's such a weird season that like I don't think you can completely write off the Patriots to that degree because you do have Bill Belichick. So it makes sense when you guys talk yourself into stuff because it's like that's a pretty extreme drop off from being in the Super Bowl. What is it, 2 years ago now?
Yep.
So that's not to say that Bill Belichick isn't still a good coach. You still have the best coach of all time as your coach. So it makes sense to be like, oh, you know what? Maybe that was the problem. We're turning things around.
I think it just says like without Tom Brady or an elite level quarterback, right? Bill Belichick, the coach, cannot outcoach the awful decisions of Bill Belichick, the GM. That's what we're seeing, right? So I listened to the show last week, and I was part of the whole amping up process. I know this is like his best coaching performance, but that's kind of bullshit, right? Because he gives himself the players, so he feeds himself crap. And then awards himself like coach of the year by getting them to 9-7 because they were crap and they had a winning season. He did it to himself. Now, I know that this year was different. I think you hit the nail on the head there with the preseason. I think he uses the preseason to figure out the role players, right? Like the second level. And
that's why how you always get like a crazy running back you've never heard of coming out and putting a good season, like the
also Malcolm Butler
receivers. Yeah. But that just hasn't emerged this season. That's the biggest difference. So maybe there's something to that.
What it comes down to, and it's not excuse making, it's just the truth, right? So we're saying that he finds his role players in the preseason, which he didn't have this year. He waited. It wasn't as bad as the Gronkowski situation where he retired like 2 days after they could have signed Jared Cook, and they were waiting to see what Gronkowski was going to do. I have my feelings on Gronkowski, and you all know really what they are. I think the guys, I think the Patriots had what they had coming to them in a lot of ways, because I think they screwed him over in a few medical areas of the game. But then he comes into this year, Brady makes his decision kind of late, but then he sits around and waits. I mean, we had how long was the list of free agent quarterbacks this offseason that he could have gone out and picked up? I mean,
but how many of them worked out? You know what I mean? Like, would any of them made a difference?
If Phillip Rivers, I think, would have made a difference. But Dave, I think part of what you've said all season long is, how do you also expect to win when you had the most players opt out due to COVID?
Tons of opt outs. I was just about to say that.
And when you have a pile of crap as your specialists on offense, it was a situation where if he had come out, and you would never do this in the NFL, whether there's fans in the stands or not, because you want people to watch the games. But if he had come out and been like, hey, we're probably going to be 8-8 this season, I don't think any of us would have batted an eye.
You're saying he knew that going in, though? You think he knew what he was working with and he wasn't expecting a winning season?
I do and I don't, because he is the master preparer, right? Like, he's always prepared for every situation. But there have been so many situations in this season that he hasn't looked prepared for. And I think that's partially because of what Mike said. And Mike, I don't think he needs an elite quarterback, but he no longer has that elite quarterback, right? So yeah. Cam isn't elite, and he was never elite. Okay. He was very good in Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, he did have an MVP season.
Well, sure. He had an MVP season. He went to a Super Bowl, right? So, but I still don't think he's elite. I think he's very good, and he was able to work in a Ron Rivera offense. I just don't think, and I've said this to you guys before, and you've ripped me for it, but I just don't think that McDaniels has made the offense good enough or bad enough for Cam.
You literally can't dumb down this offense more than McDaniels has for Cam. and like
his play calling yesterday, Thursday, was awful.
Yeah, it's because he knows that his quarterback doesn't trust his wide receivers to throw now. I mean, Cam, the reason why he holds on to the ball too long, number one, is he can't read a blitz. Can't.
No, he's never been able to.
He needs hooked on phonics for NFL blitzes. That's number one. Number two, his double pumps, and he waits until Jacoby Myers or N'Keal Harry or Damiere Byrd are not going to create separation, and then he just throws it into the ground. So what are you going to do? Damian Harris should be fed the ball 30 times a game because he can run. That is the one bright spot in this season that I've noticed for the Patriots so far. The other thing on the Belichick, on the whole Belichick scheme and what's been happening, what I will say is that guy is usually prepared for everything. He was not prepared for a pandemic, number one. Number two, and in this instance, when you don't have the time to do a training camp, you don't have a preseason, talent on your roster wins out, and he doesn't have any.
You're absolutely right. I mean, he doesn't have the talent at the specialty positions. He needs to have the talent, sure, but I think that having that one piece at quarterback can make all the difference. So let's talk about that then, because we obviously know that Cam can't throw the ball, right? He's clearly, there's something wrong with him physically.
Yeah, but we say that, but then he makes like a 30-yard in cut, like right on the numbers. I mean, he can do two throws, right? I think we've established that. It's the deep ends. He can always hit that receiver, and he's pretty good on a wheel route, but he can't go over the middle of the field. He just can't.
Which is how the Patriots offense has been designed for the last 2 decades. So
that's where I say that McDaniels needed to change that.
Yeah, but you're asking somebody to implement a complete philosophical overhaul in a matter of months with no preseason, and I think that's a little bit unfair. And also, the Patriots fan base and the Patriots media, for like a large part, tends to beat the Patriots with their own stick. You know, like this is the standard that they created, and now they're being held to the standard without having the same pieces that they had when creating that standard. And I think it would be very helpful for the team if everybody said, okay, we are now officially in our first ever full rebuild, and accepted that. And it's obviously the case. Now, if there's anything Bill Belichick isn't good at, it's probably communicating. I'm not sure how he's like held a marriage down, to be quite frank with you, but maybe he's different at home.
He hasn't.
Oh, did he? Is he? I don't know about his personal life. I don't care. I just watch him on the sidelines. But the thing is you need to give him time to rebuild this team. He needs a full overhaul. When you lose a Hall of Fame, arguably greatest of all time quarterback, you're going to need to rebuild your team. They tried it out with Cam. You can't expect Josh McDaniels to write an entire new offense and adjust around a new quarterback at the same time without a preseason going in. And he's getting beat with this stick that he made for himself. You know, I mean, he made the offense that Tom Brady succeeded in. And those are over the middle, 10 to 15 yard plays, hit your spot when you're told to, smart wide receivers that like know exactly what they're supposed to do and know what their job is. Like you don't really need a ton of flash. So then what you do is you don't draft a ton of flash, and you don't have a ton of just like raw talent on your team, because that hasn't been what you needed at those offensive positions. So then when the system starts to break down because you don't have the same guy there to run it, you have a situation where, okay, well, we need to do what you're saying, Joe, which is go back to the drawing board. But you're also trying to build the plane while you're flying it, because you're also in the middle of a season where you have to try and win some games. You're not really going to tank because you just went and got Cam Newton, and he looked okay in the first few weeks, but then he just kind of went off a cliff. Especially once like they started to figure out what the Patriots, other teams started getting tape on him on a Patriots team and figuring out what they were going to do. It got worse. And added to that, right when you hit December, the Patriots usually go into third gear because they can bring teams to Foxborough and beat up on them in the cold with like thousands and thousands of screaming Patriots fans there to like add to what I would argue for years was one of the best home field advantages in all of football. So when, there's the whole Seattle thing I thought was a little overblown, but I was never there, so I can't really speak to it. But I do think there's some teams in the Midwest that do just as well with, I won't name names, but I think it's tough to go to Soldier Field in December too. And Lambeau is an amazingly difficult place to go. But you have to cut them slack for those reasons, I think. And it doesn't mean that Bill Belichick is like not smart all of a sudden, that like, that he isn't able to do like everything I just listed out to you, which is a lot of shit. He's got to figure a lot of shit out right now. There's a lot of problems on the table, but I'm confident he'll do it because he's proven that he can.
I just think that he doesn't have enough top tier talent to outsmart like what's happening.
I don't know if what you're saying about the GM thing is true though, because he did maintain a team as a GM for like a long time, and eventually a team is going to need a rebuild. It's going to happen.
Sure, I wholeheartedly agree with that. But for like even like their best seasons, like before this last run of Super Bowls, like when they didn't make it to they just made it to the playoffs, he always had a Brady or a Brady like person on defense. So he always had those two pillars. His pillar this year should have been Stephon Gilmore. He's not having a great year, but Hightower opted out. And again, like you can actually see the correlation between when Julian Edelman left this year, or when he was like really banged up, to the slow demise of the Patriots. Right, Cam Newton was an NFL quarterback for the first 4 weeks. I mean, he was competing with Seattle. They were having really good games. He was throwing for 250, 300 yards. He's only eclipsed 150 yards once in the last 4 weeks.
Well, like I said, tape emerged on him, and he started to get figured out because they were doing the same 4 things every time. And yeah, it's going to work against Seattle because Seattle hasn't seen it, but they still won. So it doesn't really matter that much. And then eventually, oh, okay, so this is what they're going to do with Cam, like this kind of weird 3-back run pass option thing that just stopped working. And then, like you said, you realize that the middle of the field, you can leave completely open and just like push safeties to either side, to either sideline, bring up a linebacker like into a cover 2. And then like anything that comes over the middle, just going to get batted down or caught or whatever. And that's a pretty easy offense to play against. You know what I mean? But
any defense playing against the Patriots has the ability to say, okay, we're going to rush 7. We're just going to put 4 in coverage. None of them can create separation. So when he
does also hold the ball for too long, I've noticed.
Yeah, because he doesn't know when a blitz is coming. He has no idea.
Well, he's also having a tough time reading the secondary.
I mean, it's really obvious. There's 7 guys running at you.
You can't figure it out, dude. I don't know what to tell you.
You would think when you have 5 guys and a running back in front of you. So I think we can all agree, regardless of no preseason, no training camp, really no time to implement an offense. You're asking a coach to adjust to a quarterback and a quarterback to adjust to a coach. And as Dave said, you're building the plane as you're flying it, which I don't do that at home. So what do the New England Patriots do at quarterback? And where do they go from here? Because Cam Newton is on a 1-year, $1 million deal, right? Jarrett Stidham, probably not the answer. Brian Hoyer, aging quarterback. He's not going to be around forever. He's basically a glorified coach at this point. So there's been a few names that we've talked about, that we've floated out there, and that have been floated out there in the media already. So the story came out today, Mike, that 2 options that could be possible in New England are Matt Stafford and Jimmy Garoppolo.
For me, I love the idea of Matt Stafford, right? Because I think that he has all the intangibles that you want from a quarterback, especially, he can buy time in the pocket. He knows how to read a blitz. He has a hell of an arm. The thing about him is he's always had at least one elite skill player on offense with him, right? Whether it was Calvin Johnson, whether it was the emergence of Golden Tate and now Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay, like they've just done a pretty good job at producing good skill players. We don't have that here. So I'm more inclined to say like Jimmy G is like what I said in the Slack today was you trade Stephon Gilmore to the 49ers for Jimmy G and literally whatever else they want. And, you have a guy that's pretty familiar with your system. Bill loves him. Josh loves him. And like, he doesn't need a huge, talented roster around him. He's not a good deep ball thrower. So just throw the short intermediate routes. And I think with Jimmy G, and let's say next year, all these players come back like Hightower, Chung, which first of all, I think he's useless, but like people like him. I think that's a 10-win team, right? Because this defense, for better or for worse, has held on pretty well this year. They've kept them in a lot of games. So for me, I'm all in on Jimmy G. I do think he does have a weird history of getting injured. And
by weird, you mean it happens every season.
Yeah, but
but it doesn't happen every season.
I mean, 3 of the last.
There's just one season where it didn't happen. He went to the Super Bowl. But he puts himself in weird positions to be injured. Like it's not the coach's fault in New England that he decided to scramble to the right side of the field and land and get thrown to the ground on his non-throwing shoulder. Really, there's something that you could have done there besides give yourself up a little bit sooner.
Well, the only reason you're even positing getting Jimmy G is because you think you might be able to, because the 49ers would trade him because he's injury prone.
Well, because That's not Kyle Shanahan's guy. Kyle Shanahan likes to draft and develop quarterbacks. He didn't do that with Jimmy G. He was given a pretty well developed quarterback that didn't have a lot of pro experience that he probably thought he could mold. But if you really look, they've not built that offense around Jimmy G, right? That is the same offense pretty much that you would see with anyone. Like when you don't notice a difference between Mullins and Jimmy G in terms of the way the offense is run.
You notice it when they lose more games, though. He's still their starting quarterback you're trying to go get, Yeah,
but the overall scheming of the offense, Kyle Shanahan, from what I can see, and you can come at me if I'm wrong, he thinks he can put any quarterback back there to be the leader of his offense. Whereas in New England, they built an offense around Tom Brady. They've tried to tell it around Cam Newton's not working. So they can bring in Jimmy G, who has a pretty good understanding of what it used to be, and hit the ground running.
So, Dave, let's talk about that with the injury prone, where he's been in San Francisco now for 4 years. He's been injured 3 of those 4 years. He's played 6 games in his first season, 3 games in his second season. He played all 16 plus 3 in the playoffs, and a Super Bowl appearance in his third season, which was last year. This year he played in 6 games, and now he's done for the season. So, and also when he was in New England, he got through 6 quarters before he went down. Now, my argument on the New England injury, which Mike explained, where he rolled out and was basically crunched into the ground by a Miami defender on his non-throwing shoulder, that one, I even you can put it on Jimmy for doing that. It kind of goes into the situation that they have this year, right? Unprepared for the guy that they're putting under center, because Brady. Now, again, they knew. I mean, it's not like they didn't know Brady was going to be suspended, right? Like they had to know. So that
right.
Where they were probably preparing in some way, shape, or form for Jimmy Garoppolo to be the starting quarterback there, but they were half blindsided by that suspension coming so close to the beginning of the year. So, Dave, when you talk about the injuries, one guy I like to bring up in this conversation is Drew Bledsoe. Drew Bledsoe was only as good as the offensive line that was built in front of him. That is how I feel about Jimmy Garoppolo. Do you think that, and because Mike just said it too about San Francisco, that they didn't build the offense around Jimmy, they built Jimmy around the offense. If they build the offensive line around Jimmy Garoppolo, whether it's San Francisco or New England, and keep him upright, is he a good enough quarterback to lead a team for the next 7 years?
I mean, if it's me, if I'm running the organization, which I'm not, obviously, no, you can't rely on him. For me, it's just he's unreliable, and I don't think Bill and Josh are willing to put themselves in a position where they're going to gamble their next 7 years on a Jimmy G type. If you're trying to go all in right now at the quarterback position in New England, which I'm not 100% sure they are, but if they are, I think what you do is you wait and see what's happening with Dak down in Dallas, because there's just no guarantee that Dallas is going to pay him that money now with that ankle injury. I can very, very much see Jerry Jones being that guy that goes like, well, I don't know, man, I just saw his ankle explode. He's probably going to try and get $40 million off of Dallas. It's like $30 million, even if they franchise tag him, I think. So he's expensive now, looking at how gruesome that injury was. But there's a really good chance, because it was like a crazy freak injury. As we know, it can go badly. You could potentially not come back from that injury, or potentially you could. But he was about to have like the best season of any quarterback, top 2 or 3 at least. But he was on track to have an amazing season this season before that happened. And I think maybe there's a world, if any kind of back and forth starts to happen with that contract, then you can go get him. He's a free agent. Also, if you're interested, Mitch Trubisky, also a free agent this year. So, if you guys like him,
I'd rather have Mitch than Dak.
That doesn't make sense.
No, I'm gonna agree with Mike on that one, and here's why. You talk about injury prone. You talk about a guy having an injury to his ankle.
I mean, that's not injury prone though. It's not,
Let me rephrase. You talk about injury prone with Jimmy, right? But we know that Jimmy can succeed, because he has. When he's played a full season, he has succeeded, at least gotten to that spot where he had an opportunity to clinch a Super Bowl victory. With Dak was on the way, but we'll never know. And now he may come back and never be the same quarterback. Now you bring Mitch Trubisky into the conversation, and honestly, I don't think he's as bad as people think he is.
No, you definitely don't want him in New England. Trust me. He's not going to be able to figure out.
See, now you sound like Bobby. Now you sound like Bobby, and he's not even here to defend himself. Trust me, you don't want him. Well, it's like, how do you know, though? How do you know?
I watched him more than you, so I feel like I should know.
All right, so here's another guy that kind of reminds me of Mitch Trubisky, and I'll go to Dave with this one. Carson Wentz has basically been put on the block today. ESPN is reporting that Philadelphia is trying to move on from Carson Wentz after Jalen Hurts had the week that he did. One of the teams on the list of teams that could go out and get Carson Wentz is the New England Patriots, along with the 49ers, the Broncos, and the Colts. Interesting that the Niners and the Patriots would both be listed in those four teams because that's kind of exactly what we're talking about. Dave, if you're one of those four teams, do you take Carson Wentz or Mitch Trubisky?
Yeah, I would take Carson Wentz because actually, no, he's really bad. He sucks. I would not take Carson Wentz. The thing is that I think he's going to end up in Indianapolis because what's his knuckles coach is there and he likes him. He drafted
Frank
him.
Reich,
Frank Reich. He coaches there, so he's probably, and Philip Rivers is only on 1 year, I think, so he'll need to fill that spot. I think he's destined to go to Indianapolis. If you're the Patriots, no, I would not take him if you're the Patriots because you've already had a bad quarterback play there. I think I've actually started to, I never want to become a Mitch Trubisky truther, as a Bears fan, because I spent years and years and years defending Jay Cutler, and I didn't have a podcast then, but it was fucking exhausting. And I was like, I'm just going to be skeptical about this guy. I'm going to be skeptical about him. I've tried to get myself amped up to support Trubisky, but then he's like a bad boyfriend. He went and did that on Sunday. He went and just completely blew out the Houston Texans, and Deshaun Watson, is having a pretty good season statistically, and this defense shut him down. So it's like, oh, are they going to be good? What's going to happen? And no, don't get your hopes up. It's the same thing that happens to you guys. Trubisky flatters to deceive. That's what he likes to do, which is, I would argue, worse than just being straight out bad. Which is what Carson Wentz has the politeness to do. So if you're taking either of them, Carson Wentz is going to cost you a lot more. So I have to say no to Carson Wentz, like across the board, if you're going to put them both on the block. But the Eagles are taking a bath on him, regardless of what happens. The fact that they've officially given up on him, they're going to have to pay, because I think there's some weird clause where they have to trade him before a certain date, and then the team that gets him only has to pay 2021 and 2022. I could be wrong about that, but so it's not as bad for the team that gets him. I know this much. It's not as bad for the team that gets him as it's going to be for the Eagles.
I think if they trade him, the Eagles get a $60 million cap hit or something.
They get it's better for the Eagles to trade him, but it's not much better. I don't know. I don't think so, but it's not much better to trade him. If he stays on the bench, it's really bad for them.
Yeah.
But they still take a hit if they trade him, and the team that gets him, I know, doesn't inherit as bad of a contract as if he sits on the bench for the Eagles. So the Patriots, maybe the Patriots. I don't know, man. I can't talk myself into. No, it just wouldn't work. Philip Rivers, you guys said you liked Philip Rivers. He's available again next season, so I would go for him maybe over a Wentz. You don't want that attention.
So, Mike, let me phrase it this way to you, though, and you go into your point that you were going to make is either way, the New England Patriots are going to have to pay a quarterback, something that they have not done for a very long time. In fact, you could argue that the last starting quarterback that they actually paid was Drew Bledsoe.
No, that's crap. I mean, two of Brady's contracts, he was cash rich. Now, the terms didn't look great for the years, but they paid him a lot of money as a signing bonus. So they do pay quarterbacks. But one thing that I'll say, Mitchell Trubisky, you could literally just point to the fact that his coaches have sucked, which is why he has not developed, right? I would rather take a flyer on a guy who's had terrible coaching and bring him over here to where that Josh and Bill can coach them up and see what happens, as opposed to a guy like Carson Wentz, who looks really good on paper. If you just look at his stats, he has 113 touchdowns, 50 interceptions, 16,000 yards passing. I mean, a completion percentage of 62%. It's not bad. It's really not bad. The problem with him is is he doesn't look like he wants to run the plays that are given to him in Philadelphia. That's just what I'm seeing. He doesn't want to run those plays, so he tries to do whatever he wants to do, in the pocket, and he's just not that good. Like, he's not that talented enough to just call it on the fly. He's not a Brett Favre.
Well, wouldn't you say that if he was in a system then that he could subscribe to, that you would want him as your quarterback?
Wouldn't you believe that this system should be the one that he should subscribe to, because it did win a Super Bowl not too long ago? I mean,
yeah, but it wasn't him that did it though.
At 10-1 though. I mean, they were on fire that year when he went down. My dream, it wasn't listed on our rundown. I wish Billy O'Brien was still in Houston, because I think Bill could fleece him for Deshaun Watson, and that is the dream.
The city of Houston would burn to the ground.
Traded Hopkins. Bill O'Brien. They already traded Hopkins.
It doesn't. I mean, that's no. Yeah, that was dumb. He traded Hopkins, and he was lucky to have his job as long as he did. If he traded Deshaun Watson, who is literally the franchise.
Yeah, he's having a good year in a bad
right, but like that's my dream is for him to be New England somehow.
Well,
because
a girl can dream, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I would love to tell you my dream too, but before we move, so basically to finish up the conversation about the New England Patriots and their quarterback, which I think we've dragged on a little too far now, as we're only ending week 14 tonight. The last thing I will say on the New England Patriots is that if the Cleveland Browns can beat the Baltimore Ravens tonight, playoff hopes for the New England Patriots are still alive.
Can I just say one more thing, Joe? Can I just say one more thing about the quarterback conversation? I'm not convinced that Stidham's not the guy next year. The reason why I say that, no, I don't want him.
Not because we want him, but because it's probably true.
But why are they putting him in at quarterback when they're up 45-0? Like, why are they letting him throw? Why are they bringing him into
up 45-0?
Yeah, against LA, the Chargers. He played a couple snaps in that one, and they keep bringing him in to throw to try to run the offense. I think Patriot fans, don't be surprised if Jarrett Stidham is the starting quarterback for our team next year.
I thought he was going to be the starting quarterback this year, and I thought it was going to go about as well as it's going.
Yeah, but you got to take a flyer on Cam. You have to. You have to take a flyer
for sure. It wasn't a bad
for
$1
million.
Made it.
Yeah, exactly. So as we finish our conversation about the New England Patriots, what we're going to do now is take a quick break, and we're going to hear from our wonderful EP, Craig D'Alessandro, on our sponsor, Boxo Craft. So, Craig, take it away.
Have you finished your Christmas shopping yet, Joe?
Haven't even started.
Oh, well, great. I can start you off with our sponsor for this episode, which is Boxo Crafts. Boxo is an arts and crafts-focused kids subscription box. Boxo is a parent-run company that combines creativity and convenience in one monthly package, delivered right to your door. Boxo's premier box, Boxo Holidays, contains 4 separate art projects to get you and your family into the holiday spirit. Whether it's Halloween, Hanukkah, or Easter, they've got you covered with holiday fun. Boxo, we can't wait to see you create. Check out boxocrafts.com, and exclusively to our listeners, enter the promo code MTP for 15% off your first order. That's BOXO crafts.com, promo code MTP. Back to Joe.
Thanks, Craig. That was great. Thank you for reminding me that I haven't started my Christmas shopping yet.
It's literally 2 weeks away from Christmas, so gotta get that Turbo Man doll.
I don't have kids, but I do order the Boxo Crafts just for the glue that comes in it, because they won't sell me glue at my local hardware store anymore for reasons I can't quite get into. So I also endorse Boxo Crafts.
Did you enter promo code MTP at checkout?
I get my discount. Yeah, I mean, I deserve it. I feel when you go through as much glue as I do, you're gonna need some 15% off here and there. Okay, let me tell you.
Well, welcome back to Missing the Point. Just to reset, I'm Joe Malkin, joined by Mike Marcangelo and the glue huffer, Dave Clarke, out there in LA, and Craig D'Alessandro. And thank you for making it this far with us tonight. Now that we've ended our Patriots talk, we're going to stick in the AFC East because we have another conversation to have, which we mentioned at the top of the show, which was that the New England Patriots will not be AFC East champions this year. And the Buffalo Bills are one game away from winning the AFC East title for the first time since 1995. And basically what the Bills need are the Patriots to beat the Dolphins. And if the Patriots beat the Dolphins, regardless of what the Bills do, they win the AFC East. So the Bills with Jared Allen as their quarterback, Josh Allen as their quarterback. Jared Allen is the old defensive lineman from the Minnesota Vikings. He was one of my favorites. But they have Josh Allen at quarterback, and we're gonna play a fun little game here where we talk about what was going on in the world the last time the Buffalo Bills won the AFC East title. I can tell you that I was 7 years old in the second grade, probably sniffing glue. But Mike, what else was going on in 1995?
Well, thanks, Joe. Back in 1995, the last time the Buffalo Bills won the AFC East, let's see, the average cost of a new house was $113,000.
That's depressing.
Gas was $1.09 per gallon. Michael Jordan returns to the NBA after his first retirement. I don't know if you guys know this one. OJ, turns out he was found innocent in 1995 as well.
He was found not guilty. I think we should be clear about that.
Yeah.
I don't think innocence was up for.
You're probably right. Post Malone was born.
Who was born?
Post Malone was born.
Oh, so that was the day we went from pre-Malone to post-Malone. That's great.
That's right. That's right. Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if you guys know him. He was also born in 1995.
Wow.
Selena was killed by her manager. And there's another thing that happened in 1995. A couple of the movies, right? What would you say if I were to? Okay, what was the best movie of 1995?
What year did Liar Liar come out?
1997.
Yeah, which was awesome.
Toy Story.
You're close.
Toy Story was the best.
I want to say
I want to
say 7 came out in 1995.
7. What were you doing watching 7 in 1995,
Yeah,
Craig?
I had a weird childhood.
That explains quite a bit.
Batman Forever.
Batman Forever was the best.
Is the highest grossing movie of 1995 with $340 million. By the way, that is the worst Batman movie I've ever seen.
Is that the one?
Was that the Michael Keaton one?
No, it was the Jim Carrey, Tommy Lee Jones, Val Kilmer one. Yeah,
that's right.
I think Nicole Kidman was in that one too.
She was, yeah.
She was the best part of it.
Was that Uma Thurman? Not Uma Thurman yet.
No, that was the next
Ivy.
one with like Mr. Freeze.
That's the worst one. That's the worst one. That's worse.
There's been some really bad Batman
Forever,
movies. I know that's what we're doing, but
the best album of the year, the last time the Buffalo Bills won the AFC East, was Cracked Rear View by Hootie and the Blowfish, personal favorite, selling 7 million copies in 1995.
When did Jagged Little Pill come out?
1994.
Okay, because if you can't say that was better, because Jagged Little Pill is the Pet Sounds of the 90s.
It just sold more.
I'm just saying. Well, it's a different year, so that's fine. It's a different year.
I'm just reading copy to you. I'm not saying anything. I'm just letting you know.
I'm just taking this opportunity to get fired up about the fact that I truly, in my heart of hearts, believe that Jagged Little Pill is the Pet Sounds of the 1990s. Alanis Morissette, not appreciated enough in our current time, and I know that I'm
not wrong,
but
yeah, she kind of flamed out after that one record, though.
Yeah, that's one more amazing piece of music than either of us have ever done. Okay, and she changed a lot of lives. So one is better than none.
I had this conversation with a lot of people about Sarah Fuller, the kicker for Vanderbilt, and how she made 2 extra points this weekend. And people are like, "Oh, it's not a big deal." I'm like, "Well, how many extra points have you made in the SEC?"
Yeah, good point. Good point.
0. Couple solemn pieces of news, of noteworthy news here is Dean Martin died in 1995. Mickey Mantle also died in 1995, and I think the worst piece is Windows 95 was released, and I think that was just the worst operating system I've ever dealt
Funny,
with.
I thought you said the word. I thought you were going to say the worst piece was the mantle piece.
No. No. So it's been a while since the Bills have won. The world has absolutely changed. Let me tell you something. If gas was $1.09 right now, we'd all be in a much better place.
I guess what you're saying is in 1995, the world wasn't a dystopian nightmare, and it now is. So
not yet.
That's the biggest difference I've noted from your list.
Yep.
Yeah, Clinton was the. I almost said Bill Clinton was quarterback, but Bill Clinton was president.
He was kind of the quarterback.
In a way.
He was president. And I think, for us, what you've seen, like the Patriots then, because I know that you asked, where were we? Well, I was 7. I was watching Drew Bledsoe not throw it to Terry Glenn yet because he wasn't there. I think the Patriots I think they made the wild card that year. They did not make a run into the postseason, a deeper run like they did the next year. So much has changed. Jim Kelly's gone. I mean, I feel like Rick Pitino's saying, like, Jim Kelly's not walking through that door. But the Bills right now, and Josh Allen, I'm not a Josh Allen guy. I don't know about either of you. I would still take Mitchell Trubisky over Josh Allen in the New England Patriots as the quarterback, number one.
I would take Mitch Trubisky as the New England quarterback over Josh Allen, but Josh Allen will still be the better quarterback the best quarterback in the AFC East if Mitch Trubisky was on the New England Patriots.
Why don't you guys how do you hate Josh Allen this much? Are you have your New England goggles on and he's playing well for the Bills? Is that what's going on?
No.
He's like clearly
Josh Allen is like
Trubisky.
Josh Allen is like the Rick Vaughn of the NFL, right? To drop our Major League reference. No, because he's not Jay Cutler, because Jay Cutler wasn't a good quarterback. Josh Allen is a good quarterback who doesn't know where the ball is going when he throws it, and he makes stupid decisions when he throws the ball downfield.
That sounds like Jay Cutler.
But Jay Cutler made a lot of decisions pre-snap.
You know who he actually reminds me of is Donovan McNabb. And now bear with me on this. McNabb had the exact same trait as Allen, and it's going to be exactly how it works out for Allen, which is if he rolls out to the right, he throws it across his body, across the field to the left, which is, as all seasoned Madden players know, is a guaranteed interception. He's a freak athlete especially, and I noticed watching him last night against the Steelers. He's bigger than I whenever I see him, I'm always like, oh, he's bigger than
he's built like a linebacker.
He's a big boy.
And I always get shocked by that when I see him, but he does that, and that's just going to go badly for you a lot of times in a row eventually. When you roll out and just heave it up in the air, and the commentators are like, and the crazy thing is he's throwing it across his body, and it's like, yeah, okay, it worked out that time, but it's like
there's a lot of bad commentators doing NFL games, and the Monday Night Crew is one of those crews, but there's a lot of bad commentators, so I stopped listening to a lot of them. Love Tony Romo though. Steve Levy, is it Reddick that's on that, and Bob Greasy?
They're not great.
Or Brian
Sunday night's
Greasy?
the best one though, because Collinsworth is the gold standard for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
bring back Mike Tirico. I love Mike Tirico.
He was okay.
He's phenomenal.
I guess, hold on, for me, why do you guys like Josh Allen? Okay,
I don't like him. I mean, I like him because he's on my fantasy team, and his fantasy numbers are crazy good.
And you ripped him for drafting Josh Allen.
And you made fun of me for drafting him.
Yeah, so that's why he likes him so much.
You put me in the camp. You put me in the Josh Allen camp, really.
I like him because he continues to get better. And I mean, he's winning football games, and not by himself. I mean, they've obviously put a lot of pieces around him, and that defense is pretty good. But to have Singletary in the backfield,
Stephon Diggs too, he just makes things happen for you.
And he's loving being there because he hated it in Minnesota at the end. I mean, he loves being in Buffalo because that's exactly what he does is he throws him the ball. But the difference between McDermott and a lot of other coaches in the NFL is that, use the Browns as an example where OBJ leaves and that team isn't playing and that team gets better because he just cried and bitched and moaned until they forced him the football. Where Stephon Diggs gets to Buffalo, kind of quiet. They kind of tailor the offense between Allen and Diggs and they make it work. So nobody's getting upset. He's also not forcing the football. So it works in Buffalo. And I hate to say it, but the coaching has been so much better than what it was prior to McDermott getting to town. And Mike, we're going to switch gears here real quick, but it is interesting. It is interesting that you mentioned Hootie and the Blowfish because, Hootie, big Dolphins fan, is Darius Rucker.
Yep.
And who do the Bills need to lose this weekend for them to win the division? And Hootie said it best. His girlfriend left when the Dolphins made him cry, and he only wanted to be with you. So we're moving on. So as we move on from the Buffalo Bills talk, the AFC East and the Patriots, we're going to move into the rest of the NFL. And I have a few questions for you guys that I really want to get out here. And there's really one that's just been – it's really been digging at me since they won yesterday. And Mike, you have some explaining to do about your 6-10 Packers pick
we're
in the
starting
preseason.
here. Great.
Yeah, we're gonna start here because we've been in the
Did you say
AFC too
6
long.
and 10?
Yeah,
So-
sure did.
So in the preseason, we have a prediction game going where myself, Rayshawn, and Craig got to predict the AFC standings, and Mike, Dave, and Bobby got to predict the NFC standings. And now I'm starting to understand why Bobby tried to jump ship, because Mike predicted that the Detroit Lions, I'll let you say your piece in just a moment, where the Detroit Lions were going to win the NFC North, and that Aaron Rodgers was done, is what Mike said in the preseason, and that the Packers were going to finish 6-10 in fourth place in the basement of the NFC North. And guess what they did, Mike? Mike, what did they do yesterday?
I think that they clinched the NFC North yesterday.
They clinched the NFC North. So what do you have to say for yourself?
Okay, well, let's not beat a dead horse. I said 3 weeks into it, I was wrong about him. He just has a different look in his eye this year. I think it's the first year, since he's been in the league, since he's been the starting quarterback, that they've drafted someone to challenge him. Right? This is a bit of like the Brady and Jimmy G thing, but I'm going to stick with Aaron Rodgers. Here's what I know about Aaron Rodgers, man, is he's completing his passes at like a 70% clip. He already almost has 4,000 passing yards, 39 touchdowns, 4 picks. I mean, he's just literally dropping it on my forehead at this point for just because I made an outlandish pick for content purposes. What I will say is I thought the NFC North was going to be a tougher division for the winner to win. I thought it was going to be a 9-7 type of division to win. Green Bay's running away with it. I think if Aaron Rodgers continues on this level, he just probably added another 4 or 5 years to his career. But yes, I was wrong. It was a bad pick. I wanted to be a weatherman growing up. They're only right 25% of the time, and they don't get called in their shit at all. But here all year long, I've been called on it. So yes, I was wrong, Joe. I hope you're happy.
I was on your team. I endorsed it.
You co-signed it.
I co-signed it because, to be fair, I was just on board with the idea that Aaron Rodgers might have a shitty season.
Yeah.
I got excited when you said that because I didn't think anyone was going to think that. And then I was immediately accepting of the news because it's never happened before. So I was like, great, Aaron Rodgers is going to have a shitty season. Let's do it. I'm fucking on board. I'm on the bandwagon. But yeah, he's had a good year. Let's just relax. Okay. He's still won 1 Super Bowl. I'm still pretty sure he's going to flame out in the playoffs. I understand his numbers have been good, but I feel like the way that the guy is, the year he won the Super Bowl, he almost let Jay Cutler beat him in the NFC Championship game. He was this close to screwing that up too. So I don't know if he's a winner like that. I think he'll turn around and be like, yep, see what I did? See my regular season? Check that out. Shouldn't have doubted me, Mike. And then he'll just move on. And I don't think he's going to do anything. I also think that the whole they actually signed a quarterback and that kind of fired up. That's a little bit of a narrative, I think, manufactured by people like us who follow sports and talk about sports, on a professional level. I think that his season isn't that much better than his previous years.
It is.
But hear me out. Going into the last season that Tom Brady won a Super Bowl, the narrative was, is Aaron Rodgers really the GOAT though? Even though he'd only won 1, because of his statistical regular season years was always the argument. So he always does good in the regular season. I'm not entirely sure that means anything. I think he gets a lot less shit for only doing good in the regular season and not winning a Super Bowl than Peyton Manning did. Peyton Manning used to get beat with that stick a hell of a lot more than Aaron Rodgers does, even after he won his first in 2006. So, he's the golden boy, whatever. Fuck Aaron Rodgers. He'll fall off a cliff eventually. I think I stand by your prediction, Mike. I stand by it.
Yeah, so do I. It didn't age well. I get it. But, his year this year, he's already thrown 13 more TD passes this year than he did all last year. And I think we can all say if our employer hired someone that was a direct competitor to us, we would up our game at work to make sure that we still had our job. As long as you're not in a union. If you are, then you're fine. You don't really have to try much harder. But in the NFL, they do, right? Because they can just move on for the lesser, the quarterback that costs them, lesser amount. But his season this year is historic in the fact that he's thrown 39 touchdowns to 4 picks. And he's been in the league for 15 years now. I think he is a bit of a choke artist. I think he is a bit of you love this show, a paper champion, because the guy doesn't really win anything. He did once. How many Super Bowls has he been to? Is it just the one?
Yeah, he's never lost in a Super Bowl, I don't think.
Yeah, so that's it. He's been to one. Yeah,
that's one way to look at it, I guess.
Yeah, he's undefeated in Super Bowls. I guess that's true, but he's only been there once. I mean, if he gets to 4 and only wins 2 like Peyton did, that's fine. That's fine. Sure. At least I'd rather you give your team a chance to get to the Super Bowl and win.
Especially if you're as good as everyone says you are. You know what I mean? Like, just the amount of Aaron Rodgers filleting that goes on every offseason about how amazing he is. And then he only wins 1, but nobody seems to give him any shit for it. You know what I mean? He still just gets to walk around and do fucking State Farm commercials, just completely free of any criticism. So, like, you know, whatever, Aaron Rodgers.
But I think it's because he's only had, like, their offensive scheme has never been like great, right? It's like you have Devontae Adams. Before that, you had Jordy Nelson. They just run straight down the field, and Aaron Rodgers can just flick his wrist and throw the ball 40 yards. That's pretty much it. If you can
something we wish a quarterback here would do more of, and we loved it when Randy Moss was here, and that's all Tom did.
Didn't win a Super Bowl though. Same thing. I mean, right? Like, you didn't win a Super Bowl with Randy Moss. That's not a winning formula. I think it's easy. Like, if you have a really good secondary, you can shut down Aaron Rodgers. And I think in the postseason, that's what happens. The teams that they play are just that much better, and he can't do what he does in the regular season. Listen, I think he'll go down as a top 10 all-time quarterback. He hasn't cracked my top 5.
Me neither.
And I mean, now if he goes on a run these next 4 years and wins 2 Super Bowls, then we're talking. But until that happens,
it's a little late even though he's having his all-time statistical year, I still think it's a little late in the party, Aaron Rodgers wise, to be doing that. And I mean, I hate to say this about my own division, but like, it's not as if the NFC North is stacked with competition.
But neither was the AFC East when the Patriots.
Sure, but then you can widen out to the entire NFC. I think that he has a pretty easy walk to the Super Bowl this year. You know, I think that, especially with an injured Drew Brees now. I know he's going to be back by Christmas time, but what's he going to look like? Is he going to need to get like bed back in? Obviously, the Saints lost after winning like 8 straight with Drew healthy, so it's like, or 9 straight, whatever it was. You know, I don't know. I feel like this is his best chance to get to a Super Bowl. If not win it, whoever comes out of the AFC is going to win this year, so it doesn't really make a difference. But I think he's had a few years where he's had a pretty easy path in the NFC to like get there, and he just like hasn't done it. I'm not saying every year, but the AFC is, as far as I can remember, because the Patriots were always there, the Steelers, now the Chiefs have emerged. You know, these teams are just scared. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like they're just so much scarier on that side. And like, you know, you always end up having to go through the Ravens or someone, and they're always just like meaty and awful to play. But like, Aaron Rodgers has been over here just dominating the NFC the entire time. And what's he got to show for it? 1 Super Bowl? That's not the standard anymore.
Against your fiance's Pittsburgh Steelers. And I would say, like, for me, you know, even when that team went 15-1 and he was 14-1 as the starter that year, they lost in their first game of the postseason because people aren't afraid of him in January. Because he just doesn't have, you know, to quote Bobby, even though he has a Lombardi trophy and a Super Bowl ring, he does not have championship DNA.
Right.
He relies too much on this is a weird thing to say. I don't think he's coachable, if that makes sense. I don't think you can really scheme Aaron Rodgers, right? He's just a guy that can just drop back and throw the ball 40 yards.
Totally agree with you. And you can be flexible in the postseason too, and just not flexible. You can get him into a rhythm of like screwing himself up. Like I said, he tried his best to screw up the 1 Super Bowl. He did actually win it. He didn't silence any doubters winning that Super Bowl. It like just wasn't the most convincing Super Bowl win I've ever seen. You know what I mean? It wasn't. Yeah. There wasn't like an Eli Manning turning it on in the postseason thing, or like Joe Flacco. Like, how is he this postseason quarterback? There was no like narrative there to support that. There was no like, here comes Tom Brady in January. Like, watch out, everybody, or any of those kind of things. It was just sort of like, oh yeah, I guess Aaron Rodgers was like the best guy that year. Okay, moving on. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, and nothing crazy happened. So
no, and I think like the reason why like that Super Bowl stands out to me is because it was so soon after that they moved on from Brett Favre, right? Like if that had happened in another 10 years, it would have been like, yeah, it took you long enough, but it happened so quickly. And we were all like, you know what? Maybe he is the guy. Maybe he will do more than Brett Favre did. Brett Favre brought them to what? 2 Super Bowls, 1-1. Aaron Rodgers only brought them to 1. Now, yes, he's 1-0, but you need to get to the dance a little bit more often, in my opinion. So
that's part of the conversation that I would bring up about Aaron Rodgers is that while he is almost a Peyton Manning kind of quarterback, right? Like he has like Manning.
No, Manning.
I like it. Manning, yeah, you like that Peyton Manning quarterback, yeah. So that's trademarked by Joe Malkin. You can make out checks.
It has to go into the missing the point trademark. I'm sorry, we have to. I'm good with that. All your ideas. That's the agreement.
That's the way it goes when you're part of a corporation, right? Hey, Mike, isn't it kind of ironic how you mentioned, if you're part of a union, you're all right, but all NFL players are part of a union. So that's a little ironic.
I did say, but I did correct myself and said except the NFL. Because they will cut ties with the most expensive player to keep the cheaper player. I did say that.
Not to get into a debate about if unions work or not, but unions can still cover jobs that are by their very nature meritocracies, and then the all union drawbacks that people level at unions then recede because you still have to be the best at your job and you can't coast. So like in the film business, for instance, everybody's in a union, but all jobs are freelance. So if you suck, you still just don't get hired onto the next job, and there's no union ramifications there. So, there can still be meritocracies, not to drag us down the road of, Pinkertons versus unions and like union politics, but because we're a sports podcast, but I like to say that when it comes up, that's all I'm saying.
Well, welcome to Union Jack with Dave Clarke.
Oh,
see what
never.
I did there?
never. That would never happen in a million years.
So back to the conversation at hand, the NFL and the NFC, and we're going to stay on that side because, Dave, I agree with you that Aaron Rodgers could walk right into the Super Bowl this year, but I would say that you don't underplay the Rams, and I'm not just saying that because of how the Patriots played against them last week. I really do think that defense is a top 5 defense in the NFL, and I think that secondary is very good, and I think that team could be the one that knocks Aaron Rodgers out and makes him into exactly what you guys just said. Now, on the other side of it, you mentioned the New Orleans Saints and how they won 9 in a row. They won a lot of those games at the back end with Taysom Hill, 3 games with Taysom Hill. So they won a lot with Taysom Hill, who came in and is looking like a quarterback. It does really look like he can be the next guy after Drew Brees is gone. However, he and the Saints lost to the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday. They were down 17-0 at one point in that game. Jalen Hurts looked like a good NFL quarterback. He's definitely better than Carson Wentz, and I think we can all agree on that after seeing him in 5 quarters of action. But the question I have for you guys is more about the Saints. Is it just a fluke loss for them? And you mentioned Drew Brees coming back. He could be back next weekend, maybe week 16. They haven't really come up with that. I think it's all going to depend on what happens in the NFC playoff race, because right now they've clinched the NFC South. Have the New Orleans Saints. Have they not?
Yeah, I mean, they own the tiebreaker, and they only have 3 losses. I mean, so they can only get what? I guess if Tampa Bay wins out,
Tampa would have to win out, and the Saints would have to lose out. So they can still lose the division to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as Bobby likes to say.
They don't look good either, though, and
no, they don't
have like "beat me in the playoffs," like a big like "beat me in the playoffs" sign T-shirt. It's like I just feel like they don't. Like, you can't have a quarterback committee. I know it's not like a quarterback committee in the truest sense because they're not like going back between healthy starters, but you can't really have insecurity at the quarterback position going into a legitimate playoff run. And if this is a skid, if they lose more than just this one game, that's the kiss of death for any playoff bound team. When you can't get momentum, when you lose momentum going in, like the Steelers. Like their losses are coming at the worst possible time because their momentum now is starting to skid a little bit as opposed to build. The 2 times the Giants won the Super Bowl, like they sorry to bring that up, but
that's twice, dude. Like this is like the Bobby and Cowboys gag.
They gained momentum as they went into the playoffs, and that momentum carried them through to their wins. So they were going in the right direction, and I think that I think the Saints have all the hallmarks of one of those teams that are going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and also like, is anyone here afraid of the Saints in the playoffs?
No, that's what I mean. But that's
aren't
what I
they
mean.
the exact same as the Green Bay Packers?
Yes,
like when you really think about
100%.
it, like they had this great coach
right.
and one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and he's been to what? Is it still just the one Super Bowl?
No.
Yeah. Who did they lose to? Because I know he beat the Colts. I don't know who he lost.
I think Drew Brees has 2 Super Bowl wins.
He doesn't. He only has 1.
He only has 1. Yeah.
And but he's still better than Aaron Rodgers, though.
Well, so here's the conversation, though, right? Because we talk about Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback, right? We don't necessarily talk about the team. I think Matt LaFleur is doing a great job up there in Green Bay with that team, with what he has at hand currently. We talk about Aaron Rodgers and how he is a good regular season quarterback. That's what I meant by saying he was Peyton Manning, is that he succeeds in the first 16 games and then he gets to the playoffs and he only gets to a Super Bowl once and wins it. Sure. But what else has he done? So then Dave says, no secondary is going to unseat him in the NFC. It's an easy path. I disagree with the Rams, but then you say, we switch gears and talk about the Saints. And you say, well, you're really afraid of the Saints. And then you say, well, they're kind of just the Packers. And then I start thinking about it too. And I'm like, well, the Rams don't really scare me in that situation either.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, whoever comes out of the AFC is the Super Bowl champ.
At least with the Rams, right? That's a young head coach, young quarterback that have made a deep playoff run and gone to a Super Bowl, right? So Drew Brees hasn't been to one in, 12 years? 10 years? Is that it? Yeah, 10. So, and he's had the exact same, he's had as much consistency as you could possibly have in the NFL over the last 12 years, 15 years even. And he just can't, he got there once. And I would say, like, he wasn't even like maybe I'm wrong. You can go back and fact check this, but Peyton Manning did he throw a pick six in that game? Didn't they return a kick return for a touchdown too? Like, was Drew Brees the star of that game?
No, no. I think they had a really good special teams that year. I think you're right about that, but I think he might have been the Super Bowl MVP though. So I think probably was the star of the game.
Yeah,
but I do remember I do take your point. I remember the flashy special teams plays, and like a lot of a lot of big things that happened in that Saints run didn't involve Drew Brees. But I'm sure if we looked at the numbers, which I don't have them in front of me, but I'm sure to be like, oh yeah, no, Drew Brees had an amazing statistical year, because he always has an amazing statistical year, right?
I mean, those are 5,000 yards like every year.
Yeah, and he's like 4'10", like he's so
roughly. I think he's a little bit taller than Doug Flutie, so I think he's 4'11".
And if I was the Chargers, I'd still regret the decision I made, choosing Phillip Rivers over him. I think they, you know what I mean? Like, because that was the narrative of early, very, very early Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers careers. And I think this Chargers still fucked up, even though he only went and got one with the Saints. Like, the Chargers obviously just by the numbers fucked up. So,
at least he got to one, right?
Yeah, I'm completely contradicting myself now, because I'm like, Drew Brees won a Super Bowl, okay? And then like with the Aaron Rodgers thing, it's like, well, he only got one. Fuck him. So like, I don't know. I'm obviously biased against Aaron Rodgers because he's a Packer.
Just to fact check you on that one, as you mentioned, we should do that. We will do that. Drew Brees was the MVP of that Super Bowl against the Colts, which was Super Bowl 44. Nice, so then also you were right about the pick six.
Okay.
But it was Tracy Porter with 3 minutes and 12 seconds left in the game. So they were already up 24-17. Now that drive could have changed, right? So Tracy Porter's interception for a touchdown did ice the game for the New Orleans Saints. And Drew Brees went 32 of 39 for 288 and 2 touchdowns with a quarterback rating of 114.5.
I mean, those are amazing Super Bowl numbers.
Yeah, and he earned his stripes that postseason when they beat the Vikings and Brett Favre in the NFC Championship.
Joe, while we're talking about it, can we actually just compare Aaron Rodgers' Super Bowl numbers to Drew Brees' Super Bowl numbers? Because I feel like my gut is telling me that Aaron Rodgers' Super Bowl was not anything to write home about.
Well, he was Super Bowl MVP. Remember,
quarterback's always a Super Bowl MVP. I mean, that's why I guess Drew Brees
championship belt.
Oh yeah, that's why you remember that.
So it was actually the next year.
Yep.
Oh, that was
the next year.
They were back to back, those two guys.
They were back to back. The Packers won 31-25 over the Pittsburgh Steelers, as Mike mentioned, and the Super Bowl MVP in that game was Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers in that game was 24 of 39 for 304 and 3 touchdowns with a 111.5 quarterback rating.
So Drew Brees had better, right? Drew Brees
he had more completions, same amount of passes. He had
but those
less
Drew
yards
Brees,
and less
that
touchdowns.
Drew Brees completion percentage is so tight, you know.
Some would argue that Aaron Rodgers was responsible for 21 points of his team's.
Who did the Saints beat that year?
The Steelers.
Indianapolis.
Oh, sorry, Indianapolis. Yeah.
With who was the quarterback?
Peyton Manning.
He beat Peyton Manning in a Super Bowl?
What are you asking? Okay. Oh, you're asking Joe.
Yeah. He beat Peyton Manning in a Super Bowl. He beat Peyton Manning in a Super Bowl. That's better than that's what it is. That's better than Aaron Rodgers because he didn't beat anybody.
Aaron Rodgers beat Roethlisberger, who had already won 2.
Yeah, but he's not as good as Peyton Manning. Not even close.
But Peyton Manning only won 1.
Wait, are we going to have a Peyton Manning versus Ben Roethlisberger argument? You really think Ben Roethlisberger is better than fucking Peyton Manning? Are you out of your mind?
Mike, yeah, if we ever had that conversation,
I'm ready.
I mean, no, Ben Roethlisberger will never be able to even hold the jock of Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning is a better quarterback. Peyton Manning is a
weird
top
that he keeps
5
asking to
quarterback.
hold his jock, though. That's the strange part.
You know what?
Not that he can't do it or he won't let him, but it's weird that he keeps following him around. Peyton, can I hold your jock? That's the strange part, I think.
Yeah, he's like, wait, don't you play for Pittsburgh? Why are you in Indianapolis? Like,
yeah,
stop following.
I just think that Roethlisberger was at that point in time
No, it's fair. It's fair. I mean, honestly, obviously, I'm biased. They both accomplished essentially the same thing in almost an identical way. I'm wrong. You're right. I'm sorry.
in almost an identical way, but one of them is a better human being than the other. So let's move on to a couple more of the questions that we have at hand here, and let's move into the AFC because. We mentioned the Buffalo Bills and how they're pretty much on the road to win the AFC East for the first time in 25 years. Yesterday, we saw the Pittsburgh Steelers lose their second game in a row. We're currently seeing it's halftime between the Bills and the Ravens, and that is a tie ball game at 14 apiece. There are 3 weeks left after this week. If the Cleveland Browns win tonight, they are 1 game behind the previously undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers. Are the Steelers still as good as we thought they were? And will the Cleveland Browns win the AFC North?
No, they will not win the AFC North. It's the Cleveland Browns. Don't forget. 2, yeah, I mean, come on. I'm not making excuses for them, but the Steelers have had so many key injuries at one position, like all their linebackers.
You're so biased.
I'm not biased. It's they first of all, they won 11 games. Right? They were 11-0. What were they? 10-0 or 11-0?
11-0.
They were 11-0. They lose 1 game which is a weird game to apparently a resurgent Washington football team. Like they're playing okay.
Well, they have the same
pretty well
quarterback issue that your team has. They can't figure out who the hell they want to play a quarterback.
Sure. And it was an upset for sure, but like they played pretty well. It wasn't like the Steelers went in there and stunk the place up. We just talked about how the Bills, are winning games and like going and making stuff happen. And momentum wise, it's not great for them. And I'm not biased, by the way. I'm not a Steelers fan. But
you're married.
I'm living with you.
Yeah. So
sure, I want her to be happy, but not.
The truth shall set you free, Dave Clarke.
So here's the thing, and I mean this because I think the Patriots experienced it. Was it last year or 2 years? Yeah, I think or 2 years ago. The Pittsburgh Steelers were never that good this year. And there's 2 reasons.
That's not fair.
The reason you can only beat the teams you play. That's true, but they had the second easiest schedule in terms of strength of schedules in the league coming into this year, only behind the Baltimore Ravens. Now, what happened, again, this happens to the Patriots too. They were 8-0, right? And they ran into the buzzsaw of the Baltimore Ravens that year, and it completely threw away their season. Like they were never an 8-0 team. They were never that good.
The same thing happened to the Bears at 5-1.
Yeah, well, I think Pittsburgh is a 12-win team, which is really, really good. But they were never a 15-win. They were never going to win 15 games in the regular season this year, in my opinion. There are a lot of flaws that they have, and I think that
what are their flaws? Their quarterback's kind of old, and all their linebackers are hurt, including their best defensive player. Like you have to give some And they're playing a ton of games because all their games are getting screwed up because all other teams are getting COVID.
Because the Ravens,
right? Yeah, they're following their protocols. Their players aren't getting sick at the level
Conner
that
got COVID.
Sure, I'm not okay. Well, some people are going to get it, but the entire Ravens team got it, and the Ravens didn't get punished for that. The Steelers did by them throwing that game up and around. They lost a primetime game because of it, or two maybe. They had to play on Wednesday afternoon, and all their linebackers are hurt. I can't. It's just like I can't stress that enough.
But as much of and I know that the teams are different and the records are very different right now. But as much of a Steelers apologist as you're being right now, I mean, wouldn't you? Well, you are. You're
how
saying,
can you not be an apologist for a team that's only lost 2 games?
So, but then you get on us when we turn into apologists for our team who had all these guys get out
has
of
lost
COVID.
8 games.
7.
The team has lost 7 games. The Steelers have lost 2 games, and thinking that a team that has lost 2 games is good is a lot different than thinking that a team that's lost.
Well, just
7
remember,
games.
Dave, you did say that the Washington football team was going to finish at like 1-11 or 1-15 this year, and they were the first team to beat.
So
Pittsburgh.
your argument against my argument is you've been wrong in life. That's yes, I've been wrong in my entire sports commentary life.
They had the second easiest schedule this year, and they've lost their most 2 recent games.
Fault. That's, they don't make the
you play the schedule. You play the schedule that you're handed, right?
Get off the Steelers soapbox that you're on for just 10 seconds, and remember that I said they're a 12-win team, which means they're going to be a top 2 or 3 team in the AFC.
12-4 is a good record. What's the?
You and I are agreeing. They were just never.
That happens a lot. Can I just point out that happens a lot between the 6 of us? Is that usually we're agreeing, we're just saying it different ways, and then we start yelling at each other like we're doing right now.
I mean, I think usually we're agreeing is a stretch, but
there are some times that we are agreeing when yelling at each other. Is the better way to phrase that?
Mike, you're a good man. I agree with you, but go fuck yourself. Okay.
Right. Exactly. But so the Steelers are going to go 12-4. I do think they're going to lose 2 more games. I think that is just going to happen.
Remaining two. Let me look up who their remaining teams are.
Their remaining schedule is Cincinnati, Indianapolis, and Cleveland. I think Indy and Cleveland are losses for the Steelers.
I think they could be. I think Cleveland is. I mean that's the last game of the season, right, for them. So I think that's where Cleveland can clinch the division. I mean I think that's kind of coming down to be to being one of the most poetic games of the NFL season, right there between the Steelers and the Browns.
If you're in Las Vegas, would you put your own hard-earned money on the Cleveland Browns ever to do anything, especially beat their division rival Pittsburgh Steelers? Are you crazy? Would you like to make a bet with me right now about that?
I'll let you know. Game? I'll let you know after whatever happens with this game against the Ravens. If I want to make a bet,
I mean, I feel like I'm getting backed into a corner here to make a bet with DK, and I
bet
really
me $20. Bet me $20 on it. Take the Browns against the Steelers. I'll take the Steelers. Bet me $20.
I take them right now.
Great.
Well,
awesome.
to win the division or to beat them on January.
No, game
3rd?
night. On like who's going to win that game? Anyone who wants to put their
money.
Where
is it?
It's at Cleveland.
Oh, I'll take Cleveland in that.
I can't bet both of you. Oh, that's too rich.
All right,
for
fine, Mike. I'll bet you $10 each. 10. You throw in 10.
I'll bet you $10 each. Okay, great.
Okay. All right, sorry, units. They're not dollars. No betting. Wait.
Now, if you just want to look back and just look at the game this year, the Steelers beat the Browns 38-7 at home at Pittsburgh. But that's a different Cleveland team at that point in time.
They're going to send 7 at what's his name, Baker Mayfield. I was about to call him Brady Quinn because it's essentially the same.
I almost called him Manziel.
He's been getting his ass beat tonight.
They're going to send 7 at him. I'm not even watching tonight's game, and so this.
But their best linebackers are gone. So who are they going to rush at him?
Does 7 guys? Doesn't matter. 7 NFL quality guys.
Well, but so if they're 7 NFL quality guys, why did they lose the last 2 games?
Because they didn't have to play the Cleveland Browns, Joe.
They played the Washington football team.
Yeah, but it's the Cleveland Browns. They're division rival, and they're historically terrible. It's the Cleveland Browns against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's a division rival game. You have to factor all this shit in. It's a derby, you know?
You're so stuck in the Midwest with your thoughts on football.
I'm stuck in the fact that I've watched every single Pittsburgh Steelers game this year because my fiance is a Steelers fan, and I've seen them win 11 games.
So I have a question. In those 11, in the last this season, right? Haven't you noticed that Ben Roethlisberger is becoming more and more, or less and less mobile, and his receivers are catching?
They never sneak. They never sneak.
Yeah, but they don't need to because his wide receivers are incredible.
No, that's not the Steelers' problem. The Steelers' problem is they can't really run the ball. They run
Or the receivers can't catch the ball in the middle anymore either. I mean,
I think that happened last night, and that's it.
It was bad. It was bad.
I mean, there was a lot of drops. You can't really blame Roethlisberger for the drops either.
No, I don't.
The Steelers receivers are so good, though. I mean,
Yeah.
they had a bad night last night, but they are a young group, and they talked about that this week. Like, Juju's been in the league for 5 years. He's 24. Like,
Yeah, feels like he's been around forever.
Their worst receiver is 10 times better than our best in New England. So yes, I agree with you.
100%.
oh, well, absolutely.
Lamar Jackson, by the way, has had a silly stat line, and that team is still winning.
That's it for my fantasy football hopes then.
yeah, your fantasy football hopes over. I beat Mike, and I know I said it last night, and I keep saying
everybody
it.
did.
I was listening to Bobby up to like 15 minutes ago. Sorry, Dave.
Well, guys, so just so you know, I mean, between Mike and Dave, you made some interesting fantasy football trades this year. And at the end of the day, Dave, if you lose, it really didn't work out for either one of you.
Yeah,
so
we did the blockbuster
trade.
trades of our fantasy season.
Twice.
Neither of us made the playoffs. I think is what's going to end up happening.
Well, you would have if it were 16.
Oh, maybe not actually. It looks like DraftKings Metcalf is beating Robert's crazy team. I might squeak in, gentlemen.
You could.
I might squeak in here.
If you get that 4 spot, I'll see you next week.
Oh,
So
wow.
a couple of final questions as we finish up the conversation here tonight. But we mentioned the Browns and how tonight's game would be huge for the Browns after the Pittsburgh loss, which we would know that the Browns would be a game behind the Steelers in the AFC North. The Chiefs just squeaked by.
No, it's Chiefs is plural. The Chiefs is plural. Multiple Chiefs.
Who are the chefs? You guys remember that commercial, the Snickers commercial? That was a great commercial. Not a sponsor. The Chiefs squeaked by the Dolphins to hold the top spot in the AFC. They also clinched the AFC West yesterday against Bobby's Dolphins. I really got to ask to go back to the AFC East for just a moment. Mike, can we get off? I mean, I really like the Dolphins coaching staff, but they're not that good.
Well, I mean, Tua is not good yet. I still think he's better than Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think he gives you a better chance to win. I don't think he's a leader, or I think he's serviceable at this point in time. I think that guy is a little injury prone too. He's already been injured in his first year, but I think what you can look at the Dolphins and say is that they're so well coached, and their team, I mean, every player is just in the right spot. I mean, they played the Chiefs perfectly. Mahomes had 2 interceptions going into this week, and he threw 3. Yeah. I mean, that's just because they were in the right spot. So I actually think my sneaky hot take is that the Dolphins are the best team in this AFC East division moving forward. I'm higher on Tua than I am on Josh Allen. He's just not great yet.
I mean, Bobby's been banging the drum of the Dolphins all season with his power rankings. He put him 1 underneath the Steelers, which is absurd. I
also want to take this time to say I gave Bobby a ton of shit this week about the Steelers, or last week dropping to like 5th or whatever they dropped to. He was right. He was right.
They think that the Dolphins and the Steelers are roughly the same as one another.
No, because the Dolphins are going to drop out of the 5 spot, and the Steelers won't move much further down than the 5 spot. And I mean, they're still 11-2. So we tell you you're a homer because your fiance is a Pittsburgh fan. But
I'll say this: it's tough that they lost the 1 seed. I think a team like Pittsburgh really could have used the 1 seed in the AFC for that bye week.
The Dolphins also have the 3rd hardest schedule in the league.
Pretending that didn't happen. They also have the rookie quarterback in Miami, but they also
are we taking an official line here that we think that Miami Dolphins are good now?
I think that I think that their 8 wins are just as impressive as the Steelers 11.
All right, that's it for me. So
I feel like all right. Bobby's not here to defend himself, so I'm not going to go down that road. But
I'll die on that hill.
You sure fucking will.
Yeah. Dave, I'm back on your bandwagon.
You sure will. Come playoff time. You're going to die as fuck on that hill. I can't wait.
But going back to the Steelers, you're absolutely right that they would definitely benefit from that number 1 seed, that first week bye, because it's kind of a similar situation to what the Patriots dealt with an old Tom Brady towards the end of his time here, right? Where They have the old guy. They need him to have 2 weeks of rest, or at least a week and a half, just to recover, to get ready for that. And I really don't think they're going to, because, one thing, and now it's turning into the Bobby hour. The one thing that Bobby said about the Chiefs, and he said it really all season, is that they're the best team in the NFL. But he had the Steelers there at the number one because they were undefeated. Watching that Steelers team play yesterday, even though Mahomes threw 3 picks, that was a very well-coached team. But again, Mike, what did I say about the Giants beating Seattle 2 weeks ago? What did the Giants and Dolphins have in common in their 2 very well-played games in the past 2 weeks? Both head coaches are from the Bill Belichick tree. I really think there's communication that goes on there. No, I do.
It always comes back around to this.
Well, but
the
sure.
Chiefs have had their hands full in every game they've played this.
He also
this
might
season.
have the worst coaching tree in the history of head coaching trees.
I
don't know.
Make that argument.
Let's see what happens with Joe Judge and Brian Flores. But and everybody wants to put Mike Vrabel in his coaching tree, and this is a completely different episode altogether. But Mike Vrabel isn't in his coaching tree because
What's
Mike Vrabel never coached
tree? Where do they grow?
I mean, he was coached by Bill Belichick.
No, I understand. Since we started saying the phrase coaching tree, like it had ever been said before right now. And it definitely just started getting said a second ago. It's a fair enough phrase, but it's not a thing that people say. But yes, go on.
Dave, just pour yourself another glass of red wine and call it a day, pal. Just start calling you Johnny Red Wine. Forget DK Sizzle. So anyway, we're done with the giving tree, and we're moving on to the end of the show. So basically, we're coming up on an hour and a half, and I can see Craig dying slowly inside. So anyway, guys, do we have any final words as we finish up our weekly show here to close out Week 14 of the NFL season?
For me, what I would say is it has nothing to do with Week 14 of the NFL season. I would implore you, if you know one or are one, if a wrestling fan out there, please go check out episode 2 of Cheap Heat. We had a special guest on this past week. It was our own DK Sizzle, Dave Clarke. We pulled him out of the woodwork, and man, he brought it. So we'll have that in the show notes. And also, I'm super excited to get back on Facebook, Twitch, live, whatever we're going to be doing this Sunday night. Like I'm ready for that live show.
Dave, anything else to add?
Yeah, I was going to say that about Cheap Heat also. I had such a fun time on Cheap Heat, and I know I keep saying that like over and over again, but I had so much fun doing it because I haven't thought about wrestling in so long until I started talking to Mike again. And the irony is I prepped the entire day to do that show, thinking that Mike was going to come in and just try to wax me in like an argument about the WWF, but he was very kind, a lot kinder, in fact, than he was even to me tonight about the NFL. So he was very kind. He could have just wiped the floor with me with his wrestling knowledge, but he carried me like a boxer carrying like a worse opponent for the entire thing. And we had a lot of fun doing it. So please do listen. I loved it.
I think that was part of my attitude tonight, where I was like, I was kind of in a fog at least the first like half of the show, because I really thought Mike was going to come with like really hard at us about some stuff tonight, and I don't know why. I think it's just what we think Mike is going to do, because he always yells at Craig about his microphone not being in front of his face, or he gets angry with Bobby. But guess what? Bobby's not here, so he
and Mike might have still been in Cheap Heat mode. We might have just still been best friends after talking about wrestling for like an hour and a half. So
I'll tell you what. Listen, not a wrestling fan, but these guys do a great job over there on Cheap Heat. So check out the first 2 episodes. They talk about the Montreal screw job in episode 2. It was a lot of fun, and you mentioned it, Mike. We're going to be back on Twitch this week for our live show on Sunday, kind of our holiday extravaganza. And we have two interviews coming up this week that we're pretty excited for as well. So I'm Joe Malkin, joined by Dave Clarke and Mike Marcangelo this week. Thank you again to our EP, Craig D'Alessandro, who always does so much work for us. We can't say enough about him. Again, I'm Joe Malkin. Thank you for joining us on Missing the Point, and we'll talk to you on Sunday for the live Sunday Night Sports Wrap.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Missing the Point. Missing the Point is a 1-hour weekly podcast recapping the biggest stories in the world of sports with a New England flavor. The show notes and transcript from today's show can be found in the description box below, as well as on our website, www.mtpshow.com. If you're new to the show and like what you heard, please consider subscribing. It's the easiest way to see when we publish new episodes. We are on iTunes, Spotify, Google, and wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to rate us and leave a review of any of our shows. Let us know how we're doing. We always appreciate your feedback. Also, be sure to follow us on all of our social medias. All of our links will be in the show notes. And check out our brand new website, www.mtpshow.com. That's mtpshow.com. For all of us here at Missing the Point, I'm Craig D'Alessandro. We'll talk to you next time.
Step inside the marketing mirror to uncover marketing secrets, discover gems, tactics, lessons, and campaigns you can use, next gen or fundamentals. Grab the marketing magic to improve your marketing and win more business.
Electricast.
Welcome, explorers of the human experience. This is Let's Talk Soul, and I'm your host, Claudia Monticelli. We're not afraid of the great mysteries of existence here. Soul versus consciousness, we're on it. Spirituality versus science, we've got that covered too. Join us in navigating these profound topics with wisdom, curiosity, and a dash of audacity. Whether you're a spiritual veteran or just starting your journey, Let's Talk Soul is your passport to the unknown. Let's Talk Soul, diving into the depths of the human spirit. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.
Electricast.